thank you for bearing with us for the full hearing here. This is something that a number of us have been interested in for some time. Representative McCarthy mentioned that she and I are introducing today a bill called the Metrics Bill. It's not because we think that this is the end-all and be-all of legislation, but we want to clearly make the point that the NCLB mandate of infrequent high-stakes tests may have some value for somebody somewhere, I'm not sure, but it's pretty much worthless in informing instruction. And I visited a school district in New Jersey not too long ago that showed me that data-driven instruction can work. This was one of the what we call Abbott school districts. Low-performing districts fall under a Supreme Court case. And in this district, they have, in recent years now, been offering frequent tests, the results of which are communicated throughout the school system and to the teachers almost immediately, within hours. And the teachers use the data to modify their instruction. And rather than finding it threatening or intimidating, the teachers, or intrusive, the teachers seem to love it. And so it gets me to two questions. We have mandated these infrequent high-stakes tests. I mean, Congress has through NCLB. In a revised elementary and secondary, should we be mandating more frequent collection of data? Should we be mandating data systems that are built on frequent input of data so that teachers can use that to modify their instruction? Secondly, if we're going to specify a data system to be used, how do we make sure that the first that it is used primarily to illuminate student instruction? Now, it may also be used for teacher evaluation of teacher performance and so forth. But it seems to me the greatest need is student instruction, because going back to Ms. Woolsey's comment, if we're talking about accountability in schools for adequate progress, what every parent thinks, what every taxpayer thinks, what every person would think is not how does this year's fourth grade compare with last year's fourth grade, but how are Tommy and Susie getting along?
The chair is eagerly waiting the answer.
I'd like to take
I think he's asked two great questions here, and I want to make sure there's time for the answer.
I'd like to take a try.
Take a shot.
I, number one, commend very highly what you've suggested. I believe that we need to move toward formative assessments, and that we need to move toward growth models that are formative based, and that we need to retool our schools to do that. Now, you know, from my perspective, NCLB as it exists right now is about taking a look at differing students over the same time frame, and it doesn't make any sense to moms and dads to do that. It doesn't make any sense to teachers to do that. What we need to be doing is looking at the same child over time, but through a formative assessment environment where we're informing instruction and articulating the instructional need to the mother and father and to the teacher, and having the teacher able to look into a program and actually suggest to the teacher maybe use data to suggest how to inform instruction. And I supported NCLB, and I think there were some good things that come out of it. I think we just need to morph into this more informative model that I think would be better and would sustain us over time.
Mr. Wenning?
Thank you. Our view is that we need to have a comprehensive assessment system. We should continue the requirement to have annual summative assessment. We need to make sure we're investing in formative and interim assessment. Summative assessment footprint can shrink and should not crowd out the formative and interim practice. and assessment, which is vital to provide that real-time information. But we have both national accountability interests and local performance management purposes. Both have to be balanced. The balance is off right now. But the annual summative assessment, the ability to measure progress in a common way, to understand what kind of return on investment we're getting from our tax dollars, needs to be maintained, but it can shrink in its role so that we leave much greater room for outstanding formative practice to emerge and allow that to be the focus of educators. But we'd urge a balanced approach on this to make sure that we actually can have the understanding about how effective we are nationally in reaching that goal. By the way, that lets the federal government start holding states accountable rather than reaching right into our schools and districts. So that's important in terms of what kind of roles we have between federal, state, and local as well.
May I say something? I share the view as a former school official that the continuing assessment is very valuable, but be careful what you ask for. Because if you make that mandatory, are you talking about making it mandatory at the district level or making reporting mandatory back to the state? So a parent will ask you, why does the state have Johnny or Sally's biology test result from this week? Because that's what happens in the state reporting systems. If the test results that are mandated are getting reported back to a state database. And to your second question, how do you assure that the information is primarily used for student instruction? Statute, regulation. Have these databases, the uses, be defined legally. Have the restrictions on their use be defined by law so that there is a way to enforce that that's how the data is used.
I would just like, very briefly, I know we're short on time, coming into teaching 10 years ago, I was a very young teacher when No Child Left Behind was, implemented, and I would just like to say that.
I was too.
You're still young, and I'm still stuck with No Child Left Behind. What the hell are we doing?
Thank you. I'd just like to say that I think that sometimes we miss that, No Child Left Behind, at least in my state and in my school, put a lot of emphasis on what was being taught in reading and math, and I think that's a wonderful thing. I don't think we need to necessarily throw out those summative tests at the end of the year. I think they're invaluable in measuring whether or not schools and teachers are teaching the things they should be teaching and students are learning the things that they should be learning. But I also agree that that formative piece, those assessments during the year that lead up to that summative assessment at the end of the year are extremely important and probably would give us more valuable information that would inform instruction than one summative assessment at the end of the year.
Thank you. Mr. Kucinich.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for holding this hearing. I'm sorry I'm just joining you. I was chairing a subcommittee.